Welcome to stage 15 of the Tour de France, from Gap to Pralou. Here's your lone leader, it's George Hincapie, who's been all by himself most of the stage, which is not a terribly long time because it is very short. But some other attacks have been trying to develop over the past few kilometers, namely these three riders, Philippe Gilbert, Martin Emilio Rodriguez, and Marshall Gaillant. So they are also trying to get themselves up the road. We're on to the Category 3 Col du Ponty, and those three riders I just mentioned, once again, trying to launch an attack. So it looks like they're going to get away this time. This could be our first real breakaway move of the stage. No disrespect to George Hincapie, but when you're all by yourself, rarely are you a threat to go out and win the stage from a long way out. So now we have four riders who have gone off the front of the field. And they're onto the steep part of the Col du Ponty. Philippe Gilbert pushing the pace quite hard, and Rodriguez trying to get into his slipstream. The two Fiat riders have linked up, Gaillant and Hincapie, so Gaillant trying to pull George Hincapie back up to these two, score those 2 points for the King of the Mountains competition. Let's not forget that Gert Jan Tunisse, who is in the peloton, has a huge lead in that King of the Mountains competition. It's going to take some pretty serious climbing by the other riders to get him out of that jersey. And Gilbert's heading out towards the top of the climb. He's going to sprint with Rodriguez for it. And he will take the 2 points. Just one for Rodriguez and Marshall Gaillant. Well, he's left behind George Hincapie. Hincapie really was quite tired, and now looking to get himself up to the leading two riders. I think he'll be able to get back on terms by the end of the descent. From this point, it's mainly a false flat or a valley road to the bottom of the ski station at Pralou. Pralou, although not a very long or difficult climb, it is quite famous in the Tour de France because way back in 1975, that is where Bernard Thévenet attacked the great champion Eddy Merckx, took a lot of time out of him, and ended up winning the Tour de France. Eddy Merckx, the greatest cyclist ever. He's won more of the biggest races than any other rider, including 5 times winning the Tour de France. And in that Tour de France, Eddy Merckx had been injured. He had been attacked by a spectator and he had crashed, and he was definitely not at full strength. But still he stayed in the race, vowing to finish, because he knew that whoever ended up winning the Tour de France, had he abandoned the race, would have gotten a lot of criticism from the media and other in the sport. So the champion Eddy Merckx decided to stay in the race and allowing a challenger to step up and beat him. And despite those injuries, Merckx still finished second place overall, and that is a huge achievement for that kind of adversity. So that is the legend of Pralou from 1975. Tour's been there a couple times since then, including fairly recently with Chris Froome winning the stage a few years ago on his way to winning the yellow jersey. But now it's the VeloTour's turn for this hilltop finish. In this breakaway group, down to just a 30 seconds advantage, the peloton not really waiting for anyone. Blackberry with Silva and Chavanel have really turned up the pace. And this can be a dangerous section for the climbers because with the pace so high, you could end up being quite tired before we start the final climb itself. So this high-speed chase across the valley road, not great for the likes of Marco Pantani, who dislike these sorts of injection of paces on the flat. I think Stan Åkers will be alright with it though. He has a very strong team, and of course he himself quite a strong rider on all forms of terrain. So Åkers can pretty much handle whatever gets thrown at him. But we'll see how the other riders respond between here and the finish. And as a reminder, still several riders within 1 minute of Stan Åkers, including Bjarne Riis, Gösta Peterson, and Tommy Prim. So Åkers, if he's out on a good day, he certainly could lose that yellow jersey, perhaps even more than that. Things still very tight at the top of the leaderboard. But we're under the 20 Ks to go banner. Now it's Bianchi Campagnolo up to the front of the group with Big Liarco Guerra, and that is a useful man to have on this sort of terrain because he really has a huge engine. So he will help tow this field to the bottom of the final climb. And Rodriguez, who was attacking earlier, now in his domestique role helping with the pacemaking. And not only does Zulu Kingdom have the King of the Mountains leader Gert-Jan Teunissen, they also have Jan Ulrich, who is fairly high up on GC. He's been very quiet in the Tour de France, outside of a decent time trial back on stage 7, but he's still well up in the top 10. Has ambitions of defending his place all the way to Paris. Zulu Kingdom still with plenty to race for because they lead 3 classifications and they have a man up on GC. But Jamaluddin Abdujaparov, their big sprinter, no longer in this group, he has been dropped. And we're up to the 10Ks to go banner. The climb starts with around 6 and some change kilometers to go, so it really isn't very long. And now the fight for position begins. So you do want to be at the front of the group on a short climb like this. We saw the same thing happen on the Mur de Huy, way back on stage 4. Now it's Pascal Richard for Bianchi. The Adidas riders as well, perhaps thinking about Marco Pantani. And we're on to the climb of Pralu, led by the Classics champion Gianluca Bortolami. There's Andy Schleck, he's 3rd or 4th wheel next to that Kelme rider. Teunissen is right there as well. I wonder if that Kelme rider behind Schleck is Bjarne Riis, but under 5Ks to go. Pantani, looking like he wants to attack, he's very close to the front. Some Lavi Clear riders amassing. There's Bjarne Riis, 2nd wheel, he's in great position. Just looking to mark the attacks or perhaps launch his own in the last 3 kilometers. And we're getting a move now, and this is Andy Schleck of Evian. But we still have some time to make up, and with another time trial to come on stage 20, he really does have to go out and gain some time in the mountains. So here comes Andy Schleck. Stan Åkers knows he can't let Schleck have too much ground. It's probably Ghost of Peterson on his wheel. Some other Evian riders looking to mark the moves. Kelme not far away, under 2Ks to go. Åkers still working to chase down Andy Schleck. I think he's just going to sit up like this right to the finish and just ride as hard as he can. There's the Ceramicas riders, Delgado and Hampston. And looks like a gap has formed. Åkers has been driving others off his wheel, and Bjarne Riis is not there. But Andy Schleck's going to go out and win the stage. A great win for Andy Schleck, and Evian gets their first win of the tour. Choman Peruena sprinting for 2nd place once again, and Stan Åkers, the yellow jersey, holding serve in 3rd place. Adriansson, who was 2nd yesterday, gets 4th, Andrew Hampson is 5th, and Mark Matteo, also of Evian, 6th. And there is Ghost of Peterson, who just finished. He lost about a 1 minute 40 to Andy Schleck, and Bjarne Riis even worse off, more than 2 minutes. So what has happened to Bjarne Riis? He was up there in 2nd wheel, not far from the finish, and then he completely cracked, unable to handle the pace of Andy Schleck and Stan Åkers. So that was an explosive finale, and I think one that could loom large when we look back on this stage of the Tour de France, because things were so close, and Stan Åkers, of those 4 riders I mentioned within 1 minute of each other, he is the only one that survived the Evian onslaught, and he will keep his race lead. But Tommy Prim nowhere to be seen in the top 20 riders. Peterson and Riis also losing time, so this little climb ended up being quite decisive in the Tour de France, and look at these time gaps. In just 6 kilometers, this is what's happened. Andy Schleck wins the stage just ahead of Choman Peruena, Stan Åkers losing just 15 seconds, Jan Adriansson and Andrew Hampston 4th and 5th at 26 seconds back, Mark Matteo and Jan Ulrich finished together at 32 seconds. Pedro Delgado, Henri Anglade, and Felicien Berbaca, the rest of your top 10. In Evian, Certainly on top form today with 4 of the top 6 riders on a hilltop finish like this. And that could see them take the lead in the team competition and move some riders up on GC. Goes to Peterson, lost 1 minute 36 to Andy Schleck, and Bjarne Riis losing 2 minutes and 1 second. That is a lot of time in a close race like this Tour de France. Looking for Tommy Prem, he was 23rd place, 2 minutes 59 behind Andy Schleck, and 2 riders outside the time limit, Mario Cipollini and Eros Poli. They are both out of the Tour de France. So the danger of a short stage for the sprinters, because the margin for error really does decrease. So we're down to 77. And there's your new GC, Stan Åkers, still leading the Tour de France. And Andy Schleck, who's ascended the leaderboard over the last week or so, he's now up into 2nd place, 1 minute 31 behind. Goes to Peterson is 3rd at 2 minutes 6. Bjarne Riis down to 4th at 2:17. Tommy Prem down to 5th at 3 minutes 42. Jan Ullrich there 4 minutes 20 seconds back in 6th place. Some Evian riders see ascending the leaderboard, now occupying 9th, 10th, and 11th on the leaderboard. Pedro Delgado comes into the frame as well as 15th, so Ceramicas slowly making some improvements. But those time gaps really opening out from Stan Åkers onward, and that was not expected on this stage of the Tour de France. And Magnus Backstedt, meanwhile, he's your new leader of the Lanterne Rouge. No change in the green jersey competition except for Mario Cipollini being eliminated from the race, so the riders behind him are going to move up. But still very comfortably ahead for the Tashkent Terror. Dargad has a lot of work to do on the last couple flat stages if he's going to win that. Gerrit Jan Tunisse still leading well in the King of the Mountains. He's 21 points ahead of George Hincapie. I think it's going to be hard to get him out of that jersey as well. And Evian, by their masterful performance today, are the new leaders in the team competition. Head of La Vie Claire, and Zulu Kingdom is down to 3rd. So a lot to digest from stage 15, but we're right back into the high mountains on stage 16. We'll finish in the town of Briançon. We'll see you then.